This is my third presentation on a series of presentations on climate. My name is Sean Han. I'm from Class 8B of Huitong School. And today we'll be talking about the types of climates part 2. I will start this off with 4 climates: the Mediterranean, the marine west coast, humid subtropical, and humid continental. This is the Mediterranean climate. The Mediterranean climate is, in my opinion, the most luxurious and the best climate to go to for holidays, mainly because it is associated with beaches, as well as as the name suggests, it's surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. But surprisingly enough, there's also Mediterranean climates in the US, South America, Australia, and Africa. They have dry and hot summers and cold and rainy winter. The population is really dense compared to the rest of the world, and it has very rich, fertile land, which means it is really good at agriculture. Where do you think all those olives and all those, say, wheat came from? The Mediterranean, and technically the marine west coast, but we'll get to that right now. This is the marine west coast climate. It has, as the name suggests, it's close to the ocean, because marine basically means ocean. As this map suggests, all these places are close to the ocean, with the exception of this part in Asia. Other than that, they are all particularly near to the oceans. They're frequently cloudy, which just basically is fog. But then again, fog is different as it's close to the ground. And speaking of fog, well, that's all that is. This is foggy. The climate is pretty damp. It has warm oceans nearby and moderate temperature, which is a constant temperature. Never forget that. Mainly because they're all near oceans. This part, and these parts of the oceans are all pretty warm and chill. The problem is, most of these parts actually have industrial regions, which means that instead of fog, some of them have the hazardous smog, which is basically fog, but includes a lot of smoke and ashes, which is harmful towards human health. They're in the west coasts of US and Canada, South America. They're in most of Europe, with the exception of most of Spain and entirety of Portugal, parts of Asia, well, including this part, parts of Africa, and parts of Australia, including all of New Zealand. Alright, the third climate for today is the humid subtropical. If you remember from the previous presentation, subtropical, it has long periods of summer, heat, and humidity, and it's on the east coast of continents. The entire opposite of west coast climate, the marine west coast climate. But since they're on the east coast, there is a higher chance of hurricanes happening nearby. Well, here it's called hurricanes, here it's called typhoons, and here it's called cyclones. And during the summer, they have constant heat and humidity, as this picture shows. I mean, how do you think you can not sweat under this kind of weather? It looks good, and I personally like to go there myself. In fact, I've probably been to one of these climates without knowing it. They're in the southern parts of US, they're in large areas of China, which is right here. They're in parts of Western Europe, the middle of Africa, the southern part of Africa, South America, Australia, this part I just mentioned here, and parts of India. And our last climate for today is humid continental. Now, humid continental climate is practically one of those climates that a lot of people associate with the 4 seasons. Problem is, they actually have 4 seasons, but those lengths of the seasons vary between where they are on the map of the world. They're, for some reason, only found on the northern hemisphere. And again, that is one of the reasons why 4 seasons happen only there. And they always have changing weather conditions, mainly because they're chilled by Arctic air. The Arctic air is chilled by ice from the Arctic, and all that air starts flowing downwards, but as it blows downwards, well, the chill starts warming up, so by the time it hits the southern hemisphere, well, there's no need. Antarctica is doing the rest for it. And because of all those humid continental things, we get a pretty moderate climate. It's the kind of climate that is associated with most of places, and unfortunately Shenzhen is not there, so we don't get 4 seasons. That's kind of sad, because in autumn we still feel the effects of summer, even though it should be cool right now. And most of my home country, Korea, is in this humid continental climate, which is why it experiences 4 seasons. The northern part of China also experiences it, but unfortunately the southern part does not. It is experienced by northern parts of US, the southern parts of Canada, a little sliver of the western part of Europe, and the southern part, the southeastern part of Russia. With that, we have ended the third presentation on climate. These are the key points you can take from the presentation. In the Mediterranean, the land around the Mediterranean Sea is that it has dry and hot summers, cool and rainy weather, dense populations, rich fertile land. It's on the west coast of the US as well as parts of Australia. Then we have the marine west coast. It's close to the ocean. It's frequently cloudy and damp because of the warm oceans. It has a constant moderate temperature and is on the west coast of the US, Canada, and most of Western Europe. But since most of those places have industrial regions, they have a lot of smog, which is bad for human health. It's like smoke, but worse. The humid subtropical climate it has long summer heat as well as abundant humidity, and the east coast of continents, it sometimes has hurricanes. It's in the southeastern part of the US, large areas of China, and it has very fertile land, which is useful for growing crops. Finally, we have the humid continental climate because it has changing weather conditions, the 4 seasons, mainly because it's chilled by Arctic ice and snow, which flows towards the south. And that is the end of my third presentation. I'll see you guys soon in the next presentation, and until then, bye-bye. Thank you for watching.